Good afternoon, organization. Today we have a review of the DB-7. This is a French, shall we say, converted A-20, because obviously it's been converted for their needs and their weaponry, in the British tech tree. Now, of course, back when this aircraft first came around, the British tech tree was filled with the French aircraft, because the French aircraft, well, the French nation in general, was not a thing in War Thunder at that time. So anything French went in that tech tree. So there's still some rare aircraft that not even I have, like the British D520, the British D521. But of course, now I have this due to the 10 Rare Vehicles event. Now, of course, if you missed out on that, this vehicle can be bought on the marketplace. And it's relatively cheap-ish. At around 14 Gaijin coins at its lowest point, with someone actually selling this thing over 100, I don't think it's worth over 100. It's worth more like 30 at most, but, you know, that's just what people price their things at, and I don't think that guy's getting a sale anytime soon, that's for sure. But, you know, that's something at least. So the DB-7 is basically a A-20 modified to be of French specifications and all that. And, of course, there are going to be some differences between this, the Havoc, and the Boston in the British tech tree as well. Of course, the premium side of the tech tree, and of course the American A-20 and Russian A-20. So let's go over the main differences. So of course the big outlier is the machine guns that this aircraft is armed with. We have 7.5mm Mach 1934 machine guns. These are pretty good, and they can be a bit hit and miss sometimes, because of course they are low caliber machine guns. But because they're so well grouped together on the nose, with a tight convergence, this can do quite a bit of damage. Then, of course, for our rearward protection, we have two 7.5 Mach 1934 machine guns, one in this lower part here, and one in this upper part here. This upper one has quite good coverage, so does the lower one, but it's only about half as much horizontal. And, of course, the gunner here cannot go where this gunner can shoot. But most of the time anyway, your opponents tend to approach you from around here, so you can actually get both guns on them, and trust me, that can be pretty nasty. But yeah, that's the main difference. There is another difference, which is of course the engines. This is powered by a pair of Pratt & Whitney S3CJ gun. Well, I didn't say guns then. Don't know why. Engines. These are 14-cylinder radials with 1050 horsepower, and they do not have WEP. Unlike pretty much every other British, well, shall I say British Havoc, because that's pretty much what they are. And of course the A-20 is available. This is the only one without WEP. Now, of course, that doesn't mean it doesn't get access to engine fire extinguishers, or the engine fire system as the game calls it. This is, of course, very useful, and you'll see this actually saved my ass in the match that you're going to see later. And, well, it's not bad. Like, it really does boost this thing's survivability, because it can get back to base on one engine pretty much perfectly fine. Now, of course, the armor protection, I do mention that this thing doesn't have the most amount of armor in the actual gameplay towards the end when I get pilot sniped. Spoiler alert. I mean it in terms of the pilot protection, because it's rather lackluster. Now, of course, this front plate here is pretty useful at blocking low-caliber machine guns, but the problem is no one aims for that. They always aim at the upper part, which, as you can see, is completely just glass, and it doesn't provide any sort of protection. Outside of that, though, if someone's approaching from underneath you, you actually have pretty good protection for the pilot. Of course, the 12.7mm plate here, the 8mm plate here, the 9.5 protecting the pilot from behind. And even the gunners have a little bit of protection, with it being 12.7 in most areas that they are likely to get shot in. But of course, the rear gunner is arguably the most, shall we say, vulnerable, because he obviously has a more open area to obviously have visibility and everything. So that is something to consider. And as you'll see in the gameplay, this pilot chair armor does nothing for me, as I get pilot sniped, as I've said. So just bear that in mind. Now, of course, being a bomber, it does have access to 4 500-pound bombs. This is the only payload available to this aircraft, and you cannot take it off. So don't go trying to be like a heavy fire or something like that without having to drop your bombs. You will have to drop the bombs, but they are free of charge, so don't feel like you have to pay to drop your bombs. You don't. These come with the aircraft completely stock. and of course, because it's a premium, it's spaded. So just bear that in mind. You can just drop these straight out the gate if you want, but I would advise keeping them in because this thing can kill a base on its own. But it's a good aircraft overall, but of course there is a bug which you will see in the gameplay, and it can affect this thing quite harshly, especially if you lose aileron control to some extent. Luckily I don't, I just lose an engine, but be careful of it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to hand you over to the gameplay now. It's just me in this match, and you'll see not only the pilot armor doing absolutely nothing for me, you'll also see the engine fire extinguishers being rather useful, and you'll also get to see not only a base dealer get its just desserts, but you'll get to see what those front guns can do. Anyway, I'll hand you over to the gameplay now, and I'll see you all on the next one. I think I'll go for the 88 next, now that those bombs are out. Getting rid of 2,000 pounds worth of weight is pretty useful, to say the least. You might want a head-on, which is fine. Nope. You're not gonna try and ram me, you little shit. That happens a lot with this thing. People try and ram it because of how durable it is. That's him gone. Where's that Dornier? He's down there going after the guy who stole my base earlier. The base I was bombing there wasn't my original target. That A-20 stole it, but, well, that's War Thunder for you. People always steal your bases. So we did take a bit of oil damage to that right engine, but it's not too concerning. This thing flies perfectly fine on just one engine, so I'm not too concerned. Might go for that Dornier, to be honest, but there is the elephant in the room that is BF-109s, and I don't really want to deal with those. Because, well, this thing's maneuverable, but it's not BF-109 level of maneuverable. You know what, sod it, well, I'm going to go for that Dornier. And maybe locate where that duck is. Because there is a duck down here somewhere. Hold it together, girl. Hold it together. Oh, the DB-7's going for it. Yep, you set it on fire, pulling off. That's just the gentleman's code. Which, sadly, not a lot of people follow that anymore. Right, duck's over there. 109's coming down. That other Dornier is base bombing, I believe. So I think I'm going to target him. That 88's also coming back, so I might go for him. See if I can get a shot in here, potentially. Nah, not a good angle. There goes the 88. No assist or anything like that, because apparently I never crit him, even though I'm fairly certain I did. Yes, I did. But of course, Gaijin. Gotta love that. Let's see if we can catch up to this Dornier. He's obviously got a dive on, so we will struggle to keep up with him at first. Yep, he's dropped his bombs, that's fine. Right, we've got a 109 coming in behind us, which is going to be a problem. This guy's compressing quite hard, so we should be able to get guns on, but he's swinging that nose around a lot quicker than I thought. And here comes the 109, who's also base bombing, and just bombed himself, it looked like. And now he's locked on me like a missile. Oh! Luckily this airframe can take some abuse. Need to get a little bit lower, preferably. But of course, there's a hill in the way. I'd rather not crash into that. Go on. Extinguisher. There we go. Kill assist, I'll take it, but here comes the bug. Now you'll notice I'm having to correct the aircraft. That's because it's trying to roll to the right. Anytime this thing takes wing damage, on some occasions, it will try and just automatically roll itself into the frickin' ground. Now, if you lose aileron control, you have no hope of controlling this. But I do have control. Of course, I've lost an engine, but it's fine. But I'm not touching the keyboard right now. If I roll it like this, and then let go again, it automatically corrects itself. Now, bear in mind, there is no wing damage on that side. At higher altitudes, this can be very dangerous, because obviously the ailerons won't work as well up there. So if you do plan to buy this thing, just bear that in mind. Anyway, I'm going to have to land this thing, and it's going to take me a minute to get back in the action. I will see you all in a moment. Well, welcome back. I'm less than 10 seconds of wheels up, and I've already got a 109 in my windshield. Although if he's like his buddy, who binned it a few seconds ago, this should be pretty simple. Like I said, I've not long put the gear in, and I've already got someone breathing down my nose. That's an enemy bomber up there. I don't know what that is, but I'm not dealing with that. I'd rather not. So the enemy team has this guy over here, who's level 86, and I don't know what this guy is, but he seems pretty inexperienced considering he's not even spotted a DB-7 gaining on him. And he's not really paying much attention, so I suspect this guy's low level, but I have to watch for his buddy. That's the problem. So like I said earlier, this thing is maneuverable, but it won't beat 109s outright. It can match them in some maneuvers, but not completely. But if they don't even maneuver like that, you can easily get a pilot kill. But you'll notice I'm not having to correct the aircraft at the minute because the bug is now fixed and because the aircraft is fixed. But it only seems to affect this particular bomber. Not the A-20, not the Russian A-20, not the Boston, not the Havoc, just this one. I don't know what causes it, but, well, maybe someone can figure it out for me, because I don't know what's wrong with this thing. So our last fighter is that P-400, and the last bomber on our team, other than me, is the DB-7. Get a little bit overconfident, mate. So hold on, if the Stuka's there, why is there a contra... Why was there a contrail at high altitude? You know what? I'm not going to question. So now that we've got this guy on our tail, we do have to consider that. Now there is still plenty of light targets to consider for later, but obviously I need to take into account this BF-109E3. Now it seems he's had a cannon, he's not gone back for a reload, and it is possible for him to clutch this game with just a 7.92. Trust me, I've done it before. And even against these things, because these things are pretty tough. So I think our best option is to force him into just coming behind us, really, because, well, that's kind of our best interest, really. So, hopefully, we should be okay here to attack some ground targets, because he's playing very passively. And, like, he seems an okay player, like, nothing outstanding, but, like, he seems to be an okay player. I think he's just playing a bit cautiously. He's probably had a look at my player card and gone, okay, this guy's experienced. And look, now I think he's just going, you know what, I can't waste my time. The last friendly on my team has just died. I need to try and kill these DB-7s ASAP. And to be honest, mate, that's probably your best option. So I'm going to start by making him think I don't know he's coming. Remember, I still have the bombs left. He does not know that. He's still playing very cautiously, and I'm not sure why. Let's see if this will scare him off. No, but this sure will. And he pilot sniped me. Good shot. Like I said, the lack of armor on the DB-7 is really what lets it down in some areas. Because if you get behind it at a good angle, you can easily just pilot snipe it with no issue. But it's a very consistent plane, and is rather fun to get some dogfights in it. But just bear in mind, that bug can be quite, shall we say, an inconvenience at times.